Mark Sias, Florida. Tell us your story.
I started with FFL in 2019. It was a response to ads in like Indeed and those that they're hiring and that you can make $200,000 a year, et cetera, et cetera. When I came in to be hired, they set you up with contracts. They push Americo as their go-to, which we also know is an expensive insurance product. The pitch is buy leads through our CRM or buy them through such and such a place at a price. The price is typically $15 a head. Go work them. They tell you they're giving you all this training, but what they're really doing is giving you some scripts that are online. There was nobody shadowing. There was nobody showing you how to close a sale. It was call these people, show up at their door, and you'll make money. And I didn't. You're talking $500 a week is what they wanted you to start. That was like your entry level. Spend this much money on these leads and go work them. That didn't work. I didn't do that more than twice. I mean, I did it twice. I'm like, okay, we're $1,000 in, maybe $700 in revenue at best. Those weren't appointments that I was even able to set. There were people I basically rang them. I basically ran them down, knocked their door, and got a policy out of them that necessarily wasn't even a good barrier. That was my initial experience. And then, of course, I was like, okay, this is just not the best way to do this. This is no good. So what I did, this is stuff pretty much every other insurance company or insurance agent does that they make no mention of, is brand yourself. Get a Google page, get business card, brand yourself. And they just are heavy on buy our leads, buy our leads, buy our leads. If you think outside of that box, you're snubbed. It's like you have the problem. So I figured out how to make Facebook ads, right? Figured out how to do lead form Facebook. I'm in control. I know where the lead's coming from. I know how it's generated. This would be what I would assumed I was buying would be something at that price, is something of this caliber. And there was just no comparison. The lead cost is way cheaper and the effectiveness of the contact that you create is way better. Now, the other thing that they do is they are creating just the mailer alone that they have. We're talking final expense here. Their lead is telling people state regulated policy. It's like the wording in it is somewhat deceptive in itself. The end client is under the impression that they're getting some kind of benefit that they're getting that you're offering them, which is absolutely not the case. You're there to sell life insurance. The best lead would be just to be straightforward and say, are you interested in life insurance? Somebody who sells life insurance will come sell you life insurance. And that's not the case. So that's where you are getting snubbed by the end client who feels like they were hoodwinked themselves. So both of you were hoodwinked. At one point, I figured out how these Facebook leads very well. The office that I was with, they'd communicate through WhatsApp when they would talk about their sales. And I went in and posted a screenshot of my ad form from Facebook. And if you do Facebook ads, you know how this works. It shows you what your lead cost is and how many leads you generated, a little screen of what your ad looked like that you wrote. And I posted that in WhatsApp and was like, hey guys, I don't know why you're paying all this money for leads. This is what I just did. These were pennies on the dollar. They were workable. A couple of the guys had messaged me back and said, hey, how in the world did you do that? The guy that oversaw that particular agency, I guess we'll call it, he called me up directly. And of course, later I told you one of their big guys called me too, but that was after a Facebook post I had. So he calls me and he's like, hey, quit messaging in WhatsApp and telling them about your page. Those leads are all garbage. That's no good. That stuff doesn't work. And I'm like, well, of course it works. I'm making sales with it. Of course it works. At that time, just thought, wow, that's really, really bizarre that you wouldn't just automatically want the highest profit margin for your agent. So then at one point, I was going into the FFL Facebook groups and just telling people, hey, it was more or less generosity, trying to just get them to go, hey, look, you can learn to do these things and you don't have to buy all these crazy leads from these vendors that they're promoting. I got kicked out of the groups. I got kicked out of them immediately. At this point, I thought that's weird. It wasn't like I was spamming them and selling something. I was just simply trying to make a contribution.
Mark, you did read the class action lawsuit against FFL that specifically talked about lead fraud. It also talked about problems moving from one IMO to another, getting the release.
I saw that.
In essence, anything a person or corporation tells you, which is blatantly false, can be adjudicated. You could sue them for because they're lying to you. What you're telling us right now is the Family First Life advertisements, which say over and over, it will mentor you to make $250,000 a year, will give you excellent training. Are you telling me, Mark, that is complete bogus?
There was no hands-on training whatsoever. The bulk of the training was spend more money on leads. If I could synopsis training, now I became a Medicare agent after I talked about I left. That was training. A week in a classroom, and that was a month with another agent in appointments learning. That's training. That worked.
Probably you learned the proper methods to actually succeed in that particular business.
Absolutely.
If you're going to have a new career, you might as well learn the proper methods. Based on what you're telling me, Family First Life is specifically steering people away from the proper method.
That's an entirely safe assumption. Yes, I would say that there's no effort to go into any proper method. The take home is buy leads, and if they're not working, buy more leads, which is the definition of insanity. I don't think any sane person running a business would throw more money at a sinking ship.
You did see the whistleblower interview Andrew Hollard. He specifically mentioned he buys from the same lead vendors that Family First Life buys from. He mentioned something about 50 cents a lead. If you're selling leads for 50 cents for $15 and you're selling those to multiple people, that's a pretty profitable business.
That's a really profitable business. That sounds like a good racket to be in. If you have a financial stake in the lead generation, it almost seems like a conflict of interest. You're not providing the training, you're just selling them something.
Were you told by Family First Life that these are independent lead companies, or they're companies owned by Family First Life?
They were telling me that they were independent companies that were just providing them to them. So they would use some kind of a firm, was the impression that I got. Yes. No, that was what they said.
That they were monitoring the quality of these leads to make sure they're getting good products, good lead companies going into their CRM. That's what I've been told by other people.
If you questioned that, which I had because I hadn't made money, if you questioned that, the immediate answer was that you're the problem. You're not working it right. The problem with that is that if wholly 50% of them are almost non-existent people or non-existent contacts, how's that my problem? I paid you for nothing. I paid you for a dud. That doesn't make sense to keep doing that.
You did mention you got an email or SMS from a gentleman named Mike Killamet.
I got a voicemail from Mike Killamet. So what happened is I just went on my own Facebook feed, not in a group or anything, just on my own feed. Basically, I was on a rant and I was like, if you guys, because I have a lot of friends who are insurance agents, like if you guys are buying leads from vendors, just stop it. You can make a Facebook ad for pennies on the dollar and you will be guaranteed that they're not junk because you'll know where they came from. They came from you. You made the ad. I didn't know I was on anybody's radar. Apparently that frosted somebody because I've never met this guy, but he calls and leaves a voicemail and says, you got to take that post down because you'll get sued by a lead company. And I'm like, well, you're not telling me to, I'm not taking a Facebook post down. That's my business, what I post. It was really bizarre to me why he had such a personal interest in me telling people you can create a Facebook ad and these lead companies they're overcharging you for something that is not effective.
Mike Killamet, I was told, controls a group which may be 1/4 of all FFL agents.
He's a big wig.
If it's the same person. When he threatened you with lawsuits, what was your reaction?
I basically just ignored him. I was like, okay, I'm not taking down Facebook posts. I don't care who you are. At that point, while I was still contracted with them technically, so now you're talking late summer, it was like Seesaw Communications. Like nobody from there had called me at all. Nobody in my upline. There was no contact with any of them. That led me into the next conundrum, which was when I did go get actual training and realized that the best way to sell life insurance to old people is to sell them Medicare first. That's the best way to do it. Nobody there even talks about that. That's not even a conversation they have there. When I went to go to another, IMO or FMO, what we were going to call them, I had the same issues that I've heard with other people releasing contracts. I had 6 months before I could get back on board with Mutual of Omaha and with the Marico.
According to the class action lawsuit, the advertisement was when you come into the Family First Life system, you would be free as a bird. You could come and go as you please. When you requested a release, what happened specifically, let's say, for Mutual of Omaha?
They said that basically the contract's canceled and we won't recontract with you for 6 months. There was a 6-month timeline where I wrote none of those companies. I couldn't write any of those companies because I wasn't contracted with them.
I'm pretty sure Mutual of Omaha is a major company in the state of Florida, specifically for Medicare and for life insurance for older people.
Absolutely.
So this affected your income during this first 6 months.
Couldn't write any Mutual of Omaha.
There's a class action lawsuit that is focusing those two issues. They will be wanting a leader of the class.
Awesome.
Leader of the class for the particular state so they could get the additional benefits that the state offer victims of fraud. Seemingly, you're the perfect... I hate to say that you're the perfect victim. It doesn't sound good.
This definitely merits some follow-up on this. The only things I was really aware of that had me kind of like, geez, that they need to be looked into further was they had a cease and desist letter from the FCC, right, or the federal trade. I believe that was about their hiring practice or their leaderboard practice.
FTC specifically went into, hey, you can't say you're going to make it. We're going to teach you how to make $250,000 a year. Indeed.com said the average income was $111,000. They were posting all over the place. Hey, this agent made $11,000 sale first week on the job. Constant.
And 11,000, and then they had 12,000 in reverse charges.
Well, that's not mentioned. General federal law is you can't give people expectations that are not true. That is against the law. If they do it one more time, it's a $43,000 fine. I've sent quite a few emails to the FTC anytime I see this type of stuff online, but that's besides the point. I've got really good news for you in particular. If you are the leader of the class in the state of Florida, you would be helping out a lot of other people that are not in your position of confidence, that you're not afraid of your shadow. A lot of insurance agents are unemployed people that decided to take a relatively easy test. You can read a book 2 times. They come in, they come out. Once you get in as the leader of the class, tremendously incentivizes family first life when you do fill out a personal lawsuit in the state courts. The class action lawsuit, right now it talks about who's with releasing. I did speak to the attorney. He said he'll probably drop that. It makes it too confusing. If you file a personal lawsuit, you will get reimbursed for that. You'll also get reimbursed on the most important aspect of the damages, which is time and effort.
Basically spinning my wheels for 4 months for nothing.
Then you've got the issue of lead costs. Since I personally am being sued by these people for defamation, I'm starting to learn the legal system. It's not hard.
Florida's a pro and it's an e-file state, so
you go to the county courthouse, you speak to the clerk of court, you become his friend. He says, here's this form, tell us what your complaint is. Go to the class action lawsuit, you the parts of that he took out. He did all the work for you on the release issue, did all the work for you on the lead issue. You've got tremendous witnesses on my YouTube channel. There's a lot more that have not been uploaded. As Greg Birch mentioned, thousands of insurance agents spent thousands of dollars on leads and made no sales. You were relatively fortunate that you made 1 or 2 sales. That one sale you made, what was it?
First batch of 500, I made one final expense that the annualized premium on it was $400. It didn't wash the cost of the lead. The second batch of 500, when I initially did that, same thing, there was nothing. And then after that, I was buying what they would call an aged lead. These were under their mortgage protection thing that they were trying to pitch. It was hundreds of dollars.
Based on what you're telling me right now, there's a third provision, which I didn't even think about, that they did promise training to you.
Yes.
You could write down and explain to the court the provision of that. Go through recruitment videos. They're saying over and over, hey, we'll give you great training. They're going to show up with attorneys that earn $1,200 an hour. If you hire an attorney yourself, which you're more than welcome to because it's a huge case, you did tell me your income before we went live, triple damages based on your salary is a tremendous amount of money. If you do hire an attorney, they're going to do the whole game of, hey, let's create a lot of legal fees on your side, which will cause your attorney or you to drop out. You could easily explain this to the court. If you explain to the judge in your own words during the court proceedings, that's your most impressive evidence because they see you're an impressive individual.
Right.
And that's evidence in itself. Hey, if I'm an impressive individual, I make, let's say, $250,000 a year now, and I spun my wheels for 4 months back in the day, and I could explain it well, me being able to run this court case myself is evidence itself that it wasn't my fault.
There's a preponderance of evidence.
That's a preponderance of evidence that someone like you should get damages.
I can't even imagine when it comes down to testifying, what's their defense going to be?
They can do whatever they want. If you're not paying legal fees and you're representing yourself, let them spin their wheels on their $1,200 an hour attorney. The only way this is going to end, new insurance agents emptying out on average $500, $1,000, $1,500. In the case of Robert Taylor of Minnesota, $9,000. If individual insurance agents file individual lawsuits in individual states, it's not going to end based on the class act. It's not going to end based on the Federal Trade Commission. So the added bonus that you'll have, Mark, you'll be helping out your fellow citizens. That should have a tremendous value in itself.
Absolutely.
If you Google the word Florida fraud or something, in the state of Florida, I checked it out in the state of California, 3-year statute of limitation. So you're pretty tight. And you mentioned the end of the summer. You could literally go to the courthouse tomorrow, wake up in the morning, speak to the county clerk, fill out the darn form, fill out the pro se form. The pro se form will ask you for your street address and your email address. That's the first step. You would probably be asking for $250,000. based on your current income.
That wouldn't hurt my feelings any, but there's a matter of principle.
Action attorneys will tell you, hey, we're doing this for the people, but they have to get certified for the class, and it takes multiple years. And because of the complex of the tort, they're only going to be asking for lead cost, which in your case would be $1,000. So you may get back a couple $100
after the mass dispersion.
Since you're admitting on this online interview that you made one sale, like they'll say, hey, there's thousands of people that didn't even make one sale. Let's give those people more.
I'm in Volusia County. You can go to the FL Courts e-file. I mean, I can open a case right on my computer.
You do have the county clerk of the court whose job is to explain to people what to do. They've got classes. They've got workshop helping people. I would serve the entire hierarchy. Anyone who influenced you to empty out your wallet for $1,000 4 months of your life.
You told me you do have an attorney who has already created a template or a complaint.
That's a complaint based on federal law. He does have a class head for the state of California, the state of Texas. He cited the laws in those two states. It's definitely in your best interest to be the head of the class because it'll encourage FFL to settle with you. They'll most likely say to you, hey, you have to remove yourself from the head of the class. You could win a lawsuit against them. Trial will probably be in 1 year. Hypothetically, you're going to have $250,000 in your pocket in 1 year. You win, you could still be the head of the class. But it's only if they settle and they'll say, we'll give you $1,000 back. You're going to be like, $1,000? That really makes me whole? I'm sure you can do better.
It's owed just when you're put under the guise of you have something wrong. You aren't working these leads. That alone is worth more than that. I'm sorry, but you're treating people like they are somehow defective when no, that's not the case. It's the very lead it itself.
Okay, Mark, I do appreciate you coming. I do want you to file something. And I do want you to have a nice satisfaction. And the response will be attorneys earning $1,200 an hour. I'm sure you're going to get a nice smile on your face. When Sean Mikey and the entire hierarchy that convince you to waste 4 months of your life and $1,000 money, when they're all showing up in your part of Florida to explain what happened, there's a decent chance there'll be one person contradicting the other person.
I want to hear them say in court, I just wasn't intelligent enough to sell their insurance to their leads.
Well, you do have the Andrew Hollern whistleblower interview where he's specifically telling you where they're getting their data. There is a discovery process where you ask them, these leads I bought, where did you get it from? They do answer honestly, because then it becomes a felony where you spend multiple years in jail. Are they really independent lead companies, as we were told? I guess when someone does file, we'll consult with the attorney, consult with myself. As this process develops, hopefully there'll be multiple other people suing as well. And all these people can team up their resource, which the main resource is their brain. But we need people to file, because if no one files, this will continue.
Yeah, I agree.